Hello, and welcome to the Songwriters Workshop. This is the series where I attempt to write songs based on the process and techniques of famous songwriters. Each video looks at a different songwriter's writing habits, musical inspirations, and creative process, while also including an original song written using those techniques. So let's take a look at our next songwriter. This video will look at singer-songwriter Janis Ian. Born in New Jersey in 1951, Janis wrote her first song at age 12, and 2 years later she wrote the song that would push her into the national spotlight, Society's Child. Society's Child, with its commentary on interracial relationships, brought Janis both acclaim from the likes of Leonard Bernstein when it was featured on the Inside Pop documentary that he hosted, and contempt in the form of refusal of radio playtime, hate mail, and racist hecklers at concerts. The song would reach number 14 in the US in 1967, when Janis was just 16 years old. The next few albums released after Society's Child would not reach the same heights, and after a rigorous touring and recording schedule for the young songwriter, Janis would take a few years off from the music industry in the early 1970s. However, Janis would return stronger than ever with a recording deal with Columbia Records and the release of the album Stars in 1974, with its amazing titular song, which we will talk about more during the writing sessions, and another fantastic song, Jessie, on the album. Her next album, Between the Lines, would do even better, as it contained what would become Janis's biggest hit song, At 17.
Learned the truth at 17, that love was meant for beauty queens.
Hey, you're bumming us out.
This started Janis on another long touring and recording stint, releasing 5 more albums with Columbia between 1976 and 1981. After breaking with Columbia, Janis would take another break from the music industry. But she would return again, recording 2 albums with smaller labels before creating her own label, Rude Girl Records, in 1995, and would release many more albums up through her most recent album, The Light at the End of the Line, in January 2022. The research for this video will come from Janis's interview with Paul Zollo in his book, Songwriters on Songwriting, as well as Janis's autobiography, Society's Child. In Society's Child, we get an in-depth look at Janis's life, including the effect of her early success with the book's namesake song, the background of some of her best songs, and some amazing stories featuring the likes of Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Joan Baez, Nina Simone, and famed acting teacher Stella Adler, to name a few. I've read quite a few artists' autobiographies for this channel, and Janis's is one of my favorites I've come across. It is wonderfully well written, as Janis is also a science fiction author and a magazine columnist, and it is truly a unique life story. So let's take a look at her songwriting process. To get started, let's take a look at some of Janis's insights that I tried to keep in mind as I started writing. As Janis says, it is vital to give kids the knowledge that songs begin somewhere. Otherwise, where will the next generation of songwriters come from? When asked where the ideas for her songs come from, Janis says, Paul Simon said he thought ideas were out there, and it was just whether you managed to grab them or not. I think it's being in touch with yourself and being in touch with the world. She goes on to say, I think part of being a good writer is that you have to be literate. I don't mean you have to read a lot, but you have to absorb a lot and be in touch with yourself. So for a while, I just thought about what I wanted to say with my song, what I was going through personally, and how best to explore that with words and music. Like many songwriters, I keep a notebook where I write down song ideas or a couple lines of a chorus or verse that come to me sporadically. One of these ended up becoming my chorus for this video song. Though, as you'll see, with some help from Janis, my creativity would be sparked to complete the song. And Janis talks about being open to this creativity when it happens, and knowing that it may not always be available. She says, We have no idea where our creativity comes from or why it's so elusive. Why did I write a great verse Tuesday and find myself unable to come up with anything even vaguely decent Wednesday? She continues, as I grew older, I realized that a lot of things affect my creativity. Fatigue, illness, emotional life. I accept that some moments are more creative than others, and I try to let it go. But at its heart, the process of creativity is just as mysterious to me as it is to the listener or reader, and that's frightening. And I experienced some of this while I was trying to write my song. I had a few false starts where I started writing something, but I just wasn't in the right frame of mind in order to produce, and I almost gave up. But I kept trying, and I finally reached the point where I was connected to myself and to what I wanted to write. And Janis gives some advice on how to more consistently find that zone where you are able to write, saying, a good portion of being available to be a writer is that emotionally you keep yourself open as a human being. You keep yourself healthy, you get enough rest, you get enough good food. You have to keep yourself optimistic. Because if you're writing from the dark hole of Calcutta, you're not going to be able to write as often as if you are coming from light and airiness and openness. Now, for anyone who has seen some of my videos, you might have noticed that there is not the usual session counter in the corner charting my process. This is because for the first time since starting this channel, I was able to complete a song in a single sitting. And I have Janis to thank for this. In her book, she tells this story. One afternoon, I put on an LP someone had sent me by Don McLean. I was listening with half an ear when a song called Vincent came on. It drew me in, and before I knew it, I was fully involved. I listened again, and again, and again. I must have listened to it 30 times, marveling at the concise imagery, the way the chorus embraced the listener by speaking directly and openly of the narrator's feelings. I'd never heard anything like it before. And when I'd memorized the song, the arrangement, the guitar part, I walked into our living room, grabbed a guitar, and wrote. I wrote for 2 hours, finished it, then went to bed. The song she wrote was Stars, which has since become my favorite song by Janis. I'll admit, before starting my research, I didn't know much of her music apart from At 17, which I had learned to play many years ago. But reading about her life story in her book and listening to Stars gave me a deep appreciation for her songwriting ability. Janis says of Stars, when I finished, the song was everything Jerry, her therapist and friend, had drilled into me. To be real, to be truthful, to confront the events of my life honestly, embrace them, and walk through the fire to the other side. I was cleansed. How Janis was with Vincent, I became with Stars, listening to it over and over until it began to live inside of me. And I had no choice but to write something of my own that tried to reach for that same level of connectedness and vulnerability. And also, like Janis, it all just seemed to pour out of me in one go. Janis talks more about Stars, saying, "It changed my life, that song. Everything was wrong with it. There was no constancy. The lyrics changed each time the chorus came around. The verses were all different lengths with different rhyme schemes. There was a bridge that came out of nowhere. At the end, there were actually 2 bridges linked together by a chorus. But it had magic to it." Now, my song ended up being much more structured, which is something I have been trying to break out of with my writing. It feels like I'm getting too comfortable with writing in standard song forms. As I grow as a songwriter, I want to explore writing in this more loose format that Janis was so skillfully able to pull off with Stars. As I finish up my song, here are a few more of Janis's songwriting techniques that I picked up in my research. The first is something that I can relate to myself. She says, "I like to write on thin-lined legal pads with a Pilot Precise V extra fine pen." It's a funny thing about writers and their tools. When you're young, those tools assume a mystical importance. Even when you're older, there are writing adjuncts that seem to bring you luck. Imagine my surprise when I realized I also use legal pads and Pilot Precise pens to write, though mine are of the wide-ruled and fine variety. So I understand her point. Having something familiar as a writing tool can help get you in the right frame of mind to create. Janis also spent a lot of time building up her craft, saying of an early creative slump, "I knew I had no craft, so I worked out a plan. For a month or two, I would write a song a day. Didn't matter if they were bad songs. No one was going to hear them. I needed to learn my craft, and that meant practicing it." She also says in her interview with Paul, "Once you reach a certain level as a songwriter, the craft is always there talking to you in the back of your head. So you may be moving forward on instinct, but there's a little Geiger counter in the back of your head that tells you when it's time to go to the chorus, when it's time to rhyme. Real basic craft. And the nice thing about having enough craft is that you can go on instinct then, because it's second nature." So building this craft over many years and many songs is an important part of being an effective songwriter. Just like with any skill, the more you practice it, the better you become. Janis is also well-versed in writing sad songs, and has some useful insights into how to make them work that I ended up using in my own song. While discussing writing at 17, she says, "I knew I wrote sad songs. That was what I seemed to do best. But I also knew my songs had hope and redemption in them." Finally, Janis has this to say of the importance of songs. "We sell dreams. There isn't a person in America who doesn't have at least one recording that dredges up vivid memories. We give voice to the voiceless, give them back a part of themselves they've forgotten. In hardship, we provide a memory of better times gone by, and better times to come."
Please weave me a dream, all mine seem to have abandoned long ago. Still I know they fade so slow. I dreamed of fame for all to know my name and love me as I am, but they could only see what they wanted me to be and pretended I'd agree. When you're young, you have it figured out. You know what life's about, and every day's a new day to be won. It's all fun until it's done. Please weave me a dream, all mine seem to have abandoned long ago. Still I know they fade so slow. I dreamed of riches, the power it bewitches, until the day I found it's easily undone by a selfish one with silver on the tongue. Days roll by and you realize the very thing you prize is made of tissue paper. Reality sets in and you begin to give in. Please weave me a dream, all mine seem to have abandoned long ago. Still I know they fade so slow. I dreamed of glory tell my story, but in the end I learned they always get it wrong. When others sing your song, the harmony is gone. Dreams become a memory of the past, but still they last. Dreams are fickle in that way, still I pray for them to stay. Dreams may come and dreams may go. I've had my share of dreams, I know, but if I can, I'd like to try to weave a final dream tonight. I dream of family to join together happily with those who also dream. Together we'll provide a way to better times where new dreams can survive. Let me weave a dream, for you seem to be in need of one. I know dreams can't grow on their own. It seems I still have a reason to dream.
So that was the song that Janis's insights inspired. Like I said, Stars was a big influence on the song, so if you were like me and hadn't heard a lot of Janis's music, go listen to it, you won't be disappointed. And be sure to check out both Paul Zollo's Songwriters on Songwriting and Janis's autobiography, Society's Child. Both are fantastic books and great looks into the minds of songwriters. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future. I'll see you at the next song.